Hello, everyone. It's Cassandra Williamson, Executive Director for Transgender and Diverse Veterans of America, at the Action Group side of things, just so you know, as well as for the other side too. But in this particular role right here with this show, this is on the Action Group side, the activism side, and the movement building side, because we need to get moving, folks. There's some horrendous things out there that are attacking, that will impact every American in this country. Every American and every family in this country. So there's some things we need to be talking about, and particularly around this horrendous Project 2025 that's produced by the Heritage Foundation. So we're going to be looking into the forward section again, reviewing that again today. Then we're going to dig into the transportation department, see if we can find any words that are the key words that I like to look up, things like sex, gender, inclusivity, diversity, woke, the terms that are plastered throughout this 920-page document all over the place in just about every chapter, with the exception of a few minor differences. Anyway, so with that, roll the intro. Okay, everyone, let's go take a look into Project 2025. How's that? Here we go. First thing is, you can find all this information on their website. This is www.project25.org. It is a Heritage Foundation project. They brought together 80 plus organizations to build this policy and mandate and personnel training and all this kind of stuff. All of it together. They put it all together. They brought it together. So we're looking at, what is this thing all about? There are 4 pillars to Project 2025. One is the policy agenda, which is this mandate for leadership, this document, this 920-page document that we're going to be looking into, the forward and the transportation department and the Veterans Affairs Department chapters. Building this personnel database of people who would be able to step in on day one and be able to, imprint their vision of conservative America up on the whole of the executive branch of the U.S. government. And then the Training Institute, they've got a couple of training institutes there, the Presidential Training Academy, all those, they've got these things out there to make sure people are ready to be able to go in on day one, be vetted and tested and trained and make sure they're all speaking the same language and have the same kind of vision moving forward so that they could step in there and do the job to clean house of everything they don't like, of all those things that give them the vapors, whatever, and the 180-day playbook. So those are the big things out there. Those are the pillars for Project 2025. So we're going to go look at the policy. So we've been looking into, we've covered everything just about all the way down through Department of Labor and related agencies yesterday. We made it up to that point. Now we're going to go into the Department of Transportation and Department of Veterans Affairs. And as a veteran, this is extremely important to me right there for all of our veterans in this nation, all veterans in the nation. But I do want to spend some time looking into the forward again, just to give you a review, to kind of give you an idea and a sense of just how horrendous and how damaging and dangerous this thing is to America, all Americans, including dangerous for our conservative friends. It's dangerous for them too, but they've got this single-mindedness, and basically what they're trying to apply, I'm just going to give it a label. I'm going to give you a label as to define this and to tell you, then I'll back it up and show you why. But anyway, I'm calling this whole project, this policy document, is nothing more than, well, actually it is completely and totally wrapped up in a form of theocratic, authoritarian, white Christian nationalism and fascism. It's those things. It matches all of those. And you can actually go find the work of Lawrence Britt, that's spelled B-R-I-T-T. He wrote something in 2003. It was published then. It had to do with the 14 characteristics of fascism. Go check it out. You can look it up. Lawrence Britt, 14 characteristics of fascism. Check it out. You'll find out that this project and what Heritage is doing and what they want to do with the new administration, or a conservative administration, if a conservative wins next November, is theocratic, authoritarian, white Christian nationalism and fascism. It's those things. That's what it is. And there's only one person. There's only one person who I've seen who has actually had the guts to say who they really are, and that's Matt Walsh on their Twitter feed. Matt actually says that he's a theocratic fascist. That's what he is. He calls himself that, but that's exactly what he is. The rest of these people, though, they don't use those terms because that's might make people feel funny about them. Anyway, geez. So let's go look at the forward. Forward was written by, well, I guess before I go jump into all of that, I better just show you, get this part of it out of the way, because I want to be able to record that this is a project. This is a Mandate for Leadership, a conservative project, promise, forward by Dr. Kevin Roberts, PhD, early American history, edited by Paul Dans and Stephen Groves. And where's the copyright section? I think I may have gone past it already. Nope, right there. Copyright section. I'll make sure this is on the screen. Copyright 2023 by the Heritage Foundation, located at 214 Massachusetts Avenue Northeast, Washington, D.C. And there's their phone number and the website and all that. So giving proper credit for all of this. Okay. And I do want to say this too, clearly, before we jump into a whole heck of a lot of other things. The opinions expressed here are mine and mine alone. They do not necessarily represent those of any particular organization, group, department, agency, government, anything. These are my opinions, and I'm sticking to them. They're mine. No one owns them, just me. Okay, so let's get out of this thing here. I just need to make sure you had the copyright information up there. And then we're into the forward, written by Dr. Kevin Roberts, who happens to be the president of Heritage. Now, let me give you a little background on Heritage Foundation, just so you have a kind of a clear picture of what this thing is. The Heritage Foundation has been around for 50 years this year, 2023. They've been around 50 years. In 1980, they had put together a mandate for leadership that they handed off to Reagan on January the 20th of 1981. They handed it off to him. He was already in agreement with most of it anyway, but within 180 days, he was able to accomplish about 2/3 of that mandate for leadership. They were still an infant back then. This organization, Heritage, they were early teens. Let's give them at least that. Let's give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt and say early teens. But the project that they put together, the mandate for leadership back then for Reagan, handed to him in 1981, was, like a teenager wrote something. In comparison to 2025, the Project 2025, Mandate for Leadership, a Conservative Promise, published this year in 2023, this thing is beautifully organized, well thought out, very detailed, and has specific policy agenda items for each office in the executive branch of the U.S. government. And with their army of trained and vetted and tested conservative thinkers that they have brought in and trained from all around the country, they've already started training these people. They will be able to walk in there and say, okay, new president, you don't have to bother about getting, vetting people, finding people to fill all these places. We've done a lot of this work for you. Here are some of these people. Just go ahead and, pick from whomever you like. We've trained them for you. You don't have to spend time vetting them. We've done it. Now, obviously, that new president's going to put their own wrinkle on a couple of things and positions because, they want to make sure they're looking like independent and not just a mouthpiece for Heritage. But the saving grace from their side, by the way, from the Heritage side, is that 80 plus organizations have contributed to this document, contributed to building this. They put $22 million toward this thing, folks. It is dangerous. It is dangerous for them and for us. Every American in this country, it's dangerous for them. So let's take a look into the forward by Dr. Roberts, okay? In the second paragraph, He goes right after what he wants you to see. Okay? Look at America under the cultural or the ruling and cultural elite today. Inflation is ravaging family budgets, drug overdose deaths continue to escalate, and children suffer the toxic normalization of transgenderism, with drag queens and pornography invading their school libraries. Now, you could stop right there and you could base your entire view of what this document is all about. This policy document, you can see it all right there. All of it. For one thing, they don't think of themselves as being the ruling and cultural elite, but they are. Inflation is ravaging the family budget. Sure, inflation has gone up, but it's coming down a little bit, but still higher than it was a few years back. Drug overdose deaths do continue to escalate. We know that. That's true. It crosses all demographic groups and all socioeconomic groups and levels in the country. But then the thing, since they got you believing that the first one is right, inflation is ravaging the family budget, they've got you believing the second one is right with drug overdose deaths continuing to escalate, then the next thing that they say, they think that you will agree with it being true as well. Since the first two were true, they're saying if A and if B, then C must be true as well. But this is not true. But it's a tactic of manipulation that they're using here. And children suffer the toxic normalization of transgenderism. For one thing, transgenderism really is just a stupid word put in there. And whoever came up with this idea of calling transgender on our side, really, started calling it transgender ideology and transgenderism and all these kind of things. You screwed us with those words, because we're not an ideology. We are transgender, but our ideological views are just as broad and wide as the whole country. I mean, we've got conservatives and Republicans and Democrats and socialists and nativists and everything under the sun is within our group of people too. But being transgender is not one of those ideologies. It's simply a matter of who we are. And I'll tell you that right straight to your face. I mean, this is who we are. We are transgender Americans. We're also veterans, those in our organization. We're veterans. And so far, the people over there who need to hear from us don't want to talk to us because we don't fit the narrative that they want to present to the world. I've tried and tried and tried to get them to speak to me and ask me questions about stuff they're commenting on. But do they? No. And they're afraid to talk to us because, we are veterans. They're afraid to talk to people like our space scientist friend over in the Space Force. They're afraid to talk to people in the Navy who are pilots and, high-ranking officers in the military, and supply chain people over in the Navy again, and a lot of people within the, trans people in the military, active duty right now, who are doing yeoman job out there. They're doing a great and fantastic job. They're fulfilling their obligation. They're doing what they were trained to do, and but heritage and these right-wing thinkers over there don't want to hear from any of us because we kind of go against their narrative that they want you to hear, to see, and to believe. I've even reached out to the New College of Florida, and so far they've declined to even have me come and talk with them. They had a gender panel that they were going to do, and others had refused to attend, and that's fine. And then I reached out and said, "Hey, look, I'd like to be on that panel. I have no problem coming down to Florida and talking with you about it down at the New College." The board of directors there are two people on there. There's probably more that I know, but I know of two names on there. Christopher Rufo, who is totally transphobic. And I know that he probably doesn't think he fears trans people, but I'm going to tell you, he gets all kinds of vapors about it. Chris just gets all kinds of up in arms about transgender people. So does Matt Walsh and others. But Christopher Rufo, and I think it's Ryan Anderson is the other, who's a psychologist, I believe, who has targeted trans people for years. They're on the board of New College, but they won't talk to me. I reached out to the leadership at that college, and they will not interact with me because can you imagine them having to explain that there's this accomplished person who is a veteran on stage talking about gender issues? Can you imagine the conflict that would cause in some of their people that they want to persuade that we aren't justified in living our lives openly and freely? Really? Okay, so see, that's what I get into with reading just this in the second paragraph. Whew, okay, are you ready? Moreover, low-income communities are drowning in addiction and government dependence. Well, first thing is this part right here it may be true, and it is true that there's low-income communities are drowning in addiction, but middle income and high income people are also drowning in addictions. They just have more money to cover it up in court. Contemporary elites have even repurposed the worst ingredients of 1970s radical chic to build the totalitarian cult known today as the Great Awakening. God almighty. And by the way, they didn't properly credit the use of the word radical chic. That's from Tom Wolfe back in 1970. He actually came up with that turn of phrase there. And the totalitarian cult known today as the Great Awakening, they need to look in the mirror. And I could actually reword this to say the totalitarian cult known today as the regressive, conservative people or thinking leaders or whatever. Yeah, they're not enlightened. they would prefer to be, blind to the changing world around them. And then, most alarming of all, the very moral foundation of our society is in peril. Well, we have short-term memories, don't we? Anybody remember what it was like, I don't know, in the 1880s, 1870s? Back in that little really short, like 20-year period when cowboys were cowboys? Do you know what the West was like? Yeah. Okay. All righty. Conservative promise. Let's scroll on down to the next part of this. It's at the bottom of page 4. Okay. Today, the left is threatening the tax-exempt status of churches and charities that reject woke progressivism. They will soon turn to Christian schools and clubs with the same totalitarian intent. The next conservative president must make the institution of American civil society hard targets for woke culture warriors. Well, these are enlightened culture warriors, and we're definitely out here fighting for our right to live and to be and to survive and to thrive in our own country for which we have served, period. This starts with deleting. And look, this is real stuff, folks. This is no idle threat. This is not something you can look over and pretend is not there. You cannot pretend that this is something they don't want to do, or that if they get in the position of power where they can do it, that they will not do it. This they will do, folks. We've got to get this thing ingrained in our heads and to fight against it. Not physically, not violently, no, by no means whatsoever. But we've got to take a stand, because they want to delete these terms from the whole of the federal government. And let me explain the impact of why you would want to delete, or why they will delete these things and the impact of that. This starts with deleting the terms sexual orientation, gender identity, which is in the scientific field is called SOGI. People call it SOGI. Researchers call it SOGI, just to keep from having to say sexual orientation, gender identity. SOGI, you've got diversity, equity, inclusion, which is DE&I. They want to remove or delete gender equality, equity awareness, sensitivity, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, and any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights. What about ours? They leave this is wide open, folks, wide open. They're going after anything to do with intersectionality. It's used as that term is used in one of the chapters down through here. because, they use it as a hammer, I guess you could say. But what do they want to do with this? Out of every federal rule, agency, regulation, contract, grant, regulation, and piece of legislation that exists. That's militant right there. This is theocratic, authoritarian, white Christian nationalism, fascism, period. That's what this is. And look, the one I wanted you to see was the word grant. I mean, the rest are bad too. But if you take away the ability to research these topics, because you're removing these words and can't use these words in the executive branch of the U.S. government, those agencies and offices that conduct research into the social determinants of health that impact minorities can't be studied, because you've removed the SOGI terms. You've removed DE&I, anything to do with diversity, equity, inclusion. You've removed everything to do with any racial category or ethnic category out there that is broad. Broad has a lot of different capabilities and nuances to it. You've removed all of those things. And then down through this document, down in some of these chapters, they say, hey, we need to do some of this research that looks at the negative impact of, gender transition and stuff like that. But they're going to delete the terms so that they can't do the research, even though they say they need to do the research, but they won't, because the words will be gone. The language is gone to define these things. This is bad. This is bad. Okay. Pornography manifested today in the omnipresent propagation of transgender ideology and sexualization of children. Here we go, right there. And it has no claim to First Amendment protection. They want you to think that that's just pornography they're talking about right there, but they have conflated pornography with the propagation of transgender ideology. And back to that ideology thing again, throwing that out there. They don't want to identify the people as a person, just as an individual who happens to be transgender or gender diverse, gender fluid, non-binary, any of those things, intersex. They don't want to talk about that as individuals, because, you want to scapegoat a whole group of people by calling them a ideology. The right and the left do that, by the way. It's not just something on the right, but right now in this time and this day and time, the right is controlling the narrative because they've got a movement started. We don't. We need to, though. And it has no claim to First Amendment protections. I don't know if that pisses you off or not, but I serve for all of us. We serve for all of us. If you're a veteran out there or active duty military, you served or are serving for these rights. All of them. And then they go down. And purveyors are child predators, misogynistic exploiters of women. Their product is as addictive as any illicit drug and as psychologically destructive as any crime. Pornography should be outlawed. First sentence in this paragraph, they equate being transgender with pornography. Pornography should be outlawed. The people who produce and distribute it should be imprisoned. Educators and public librarians who purvey it should be classed as registered sex offenders, and telecommunications technology firms that facilitate its spread should be shuttered. Folks, they're out to shut us all down, shove us under the floorboards in the closet, in the back of the closet, in the corner, under it. They don't want to see us. They're basing this claim on being colorblind. Now, I recognize and do appreciate that Martin Luther King started this conversation around being colorblind in society, because that is an aspirational goal. It's an aspirational goal even now. However, we're not there. We've got a long way to go. And I'm changing it from colorblind to minority blind. So this whole document wants to turn the executive branch into a minority blind organization. Leg, the third leg of our government, okay? So they want to do that. They want to make it minority blind. But they also don't want to study anything that would impact the social determinants of health and impact the thriving and health and well-being of minorities in the country. They don't want to know about it. They want to be blind to it. They don't want to see it. They don't want to hear it. They want to be, they want it, all of that, everything that identifies us as being, who we are. And yes, there are social determinants of health that need to be studied on a national level so that we can understand where we need to focus efforts to fix things. They want to do away with the ability to look at it and study it and review it. Yeah. The noxious tenets of critical race theory and gender ideology should be excised from curricula in every public school in the country. These theories poison our children and are being taught on one hand to affirm the color of their skin fundamentally determines their identity and even their moral status, while on the other hand, they are taught to deny the very creatureliness that inheres to being human and consists in accepting the givenness of our nature as men or women. They don't understand nature very well. Actually, they don't like what nature is showing them, so they're trying to ignore it. They think that if they can just pretend that the variety and the diversity that's inherent within nature, if they can pretend that's not real, then they feel so much better. They don't have to worry about all the problems that might arise, Oh, my goodness. Allowing parents or physicians to reassign the sex of a minor child as child abuse and must end. For public institutions, use taxpayer dollars to declare the superiority or inferiority of certain races, sexes, and religions is a violation of the Constitution and civil rights law and cannot be tolerated by any government anywhere in the country, except, of course, unless you're a minority. Because they want that right up here. You're not protected by the First Amendment, folks. Right. And then reassign the sex. No, we're not talking about reassigning any sex, okay? We're talking about gender. And there are three components to this thing that people get mixed up all the time, and they shouldn't, but they do, and it's deliberate. First thing is there's genetic sex. Now, I know for me personally, my genetic sex is XY male. I know that. My anatomical sex is female, but you don't need to know that. But I just want you to know it. But my gender is female too. So there's much more nuance to these kind of things, but they don't want to have sex and gender thrown in there, a gender as being some kind of other term that's broken down. They think of gender as just being a polite way, a polite Southern way. That's what they're implying. A polite Southern way from like Gone with the Wind. When you say gender, you don't have to worry about somebody going, oh, you said the word sex. Oh, sex. So they want gender to be just one of those, Gone with the Wind polite terms. And that's literally what it's about. Okay. Federal policy cannot allow this industrial scale child abuse to continue. Conservatives should gratefully celebrate the greatest pro-family win in a generation, overturning Roe v. Wade, the Dobbs decision. But the Dobbs decision is just the beginning. We knew that. We tried to tell people that. They have never really, even though they've been saying for years that what they wanted to do was return their decisions around abortion back to the states. Remember all that? Y'all remember hearing that, seeing it, reading it somewhere? We just want to give the states the authority to decide for themselves about abortion because that's not something that the federal government should be doing. Watch this. Conservatives in the states and in Washington, including the next conservative administration, should push as hard as possible to protect the unborn in every jurisdiction in America, in particular The next conservative president should work with Congress to enact the most robust protections for the unborn that Congress will support, while deploying existing federal powers to protect innocent life and vigorously complying with statutory bans on federal funding of abortion. They want the woman's body to be under their thumb, period. Let's go on down. We haven't even made, oh, wait. What are we looking into here right now? Okay. Bureaucrats at the Department of Education inject racist, anti-American, ahistorical propaganda in America's classrooms. No, it's a more complete picture of history, because everybody knows that the winner of any particular conflict or whatever, whoever comes out on top in any particular situation, they want to make the history look and sound good for themselves. And they don't want people to start talking about some of the bad that they themselves caused. Bureaucrats at the Department of Justice force school districts to undermine girls' sports and parents' rights to satisfy transgender extremists. Yeah, extremists. Okay, wow. Woke bureaucrats at the Pentagon force troops to attend training seminars about white privilege. Okay. Bureaucrats at the State Department infuse U.S. foreign aid programs with woke extremism about intersectionality and abortion. Remember, that word intersectionality wasn't included in that list that they want to delete, but they put that comma in there because they want to remove the word intersectionality. Unaccountable federal spending is the secret lifeblood of the Great Awakening. Woo! As monolithic as the left's institutional power appears to be, it originates with appropriations from Congress and is made complete by a feckless president. But in the meantime, there are many executive tools a courageous conservative president can use to handcuff the bureaucracy, push Congress to return to its constitutional responsibility, and restore power over Washington to the American people, bring the administrative state to heel, and in the process, defang and defund the woke culture warriors who have infiltrated every last institution in America. Need I say more? The conservative promise lays out how to use many of these tools, including how to fire supposedly unfireable federal bureaucrats. That goes back to Schedule F, an executive order that makes all of the executive branch federal employees at-will employees. How to shutter wasteful and corrupt bureaus and offices. How to muzzle woke propaganda at every level of government. How to restore the American people's constitutional authority over the administrative state, and how to save untold taxpayer dollars in the process. Let's go on down. Here we go. Now, this is just in the forward, folks. Instead, they believe in a kind of 21st century Wilsonian order in which the enlightened, highly educated managerial elite runs things rather than the humble, patriotic working families who make up the majority of what the elites contemptuously call flyover country. Yeah, we do have a problem with that. Because this part right here, the flyover country part, there's a lot of people living in flyover country. And if we're going to win or going to keep a conservative from winning the presidency in November of next year, of 2024, then we have got to focus a lot of attention in the middle of the country, because it's not the number of votes that get that person into the office of president. It's the number of electoral college votes. That is found in the middle of the country because, that's the way it was set up in the Constitution. So we got to work with that, right? The Wilsonian hubris has spread like a cancer through many of America's largest corporations. Y'all look up Wilson sometimes. He was the person who started that League of Nations. Actually pushed for that because, at the end of World War II, people kind of understood they didn't want to do that again, but the League of Nations was really weak. It didn't have enough authority to actually do things that needed to be done, and that's why the United Nations filled in the gap later at the end of World War II. Anyway, let me see. Those who run our so-called American corporations have bent to the will of the woke agenda. and care more for their foreign investors and organizations than their American workers and customers. Today, well, I'm not going to read all that right there. Da-da-da-da-da. But under our Constitution, they are the mere equals of workers who shower after work instead of before. I think that's just a beautifully crafted statement right there. Mere equals of the workers who shower after work instead of before. They're creating a movement, a powerful movement to sweep across the country and put conservatives in power so they can accomplish their goals of wiping out most of this country. Wiping it out in terms of making it go away and hiding it. Like the progressive Woodrow Wilson a century ago, the woke left today seeks a world bound by global treaties that's what they in which they exercise dictatorial powers over all nations without being subject to democratic accountability. Hyperbole much? That's why today's progressive left so cavalierly support open borders despite the lawless humanitarian crisis their policy created along America's southern border. No, that border has been open for a long time. We didn't even start worrying about trying to do anything about the border until 1890? I think the first section of wall was actually put up, not fence really, it was more like a barbed wire fence. It was put up in 1902 or somewhere in that early 1900s. But that was because they wanted to keep out there were some infected ticks. They wanted to make sure stayed in Mexico, but we're in the U.S. anyway. But then they also were concerned about the Chinese who had been here helping build the railroads. After people got tired of it and they said, hey, we're tired of that. We want those jobs. So they never did take those jobs, but the Chinese people built the railroads. But then after they were finished, they wanted to kick them out. Yeah. Okay. La, 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 la. Cheap Grace aptly describes the left's love affair with environmental extremism. At its very heart, environmental extremism is decidedly anti-human. Really? No, we would just like to be able to live on a planet that is not destroyed by, massive mining, stripping of all the lands and mountains and destroying everything and all of that. We'd like to have something here that actually is sustainable and helps us through the future. Okay, let's go on down. I'm almost done with the forward finally. The other two sections of the chapters will be pretty easily addressed. Left to our own devices, the American people rejected European monarchy and colonialism, just as we rejected slavery, second-class citizenship for women, mercantilism, socialism, Wilsonian globalism, fascism, communism, and today wokeism. Good Lord. We may have officially rejected slavery, but the impact and the dangers and the harms caused by that and the Reconstruction period afterward and before, the different things that took place before and after and continue, are still around. But, we don't want to study them to find out what they are because we're eliminating all the words that would help us identify things like that, There's just so much crap in this. All right. Antitrust enforcement against corporate. Okay. It should promote educational opportunities outside the woke-dominated system of public schools and universities, including trade schools, apprenticeship programs, student loan alternatives that fund students' dreams instead of Marxist academics. Best effort. Ultimately, the left does not believe that all men are created equal. Well, we believe that all people are created equal. All people are created equal. They think they are special. Good Lord. They certainly don't think all people have an unalienable right to pursue the good life. Yeah, we do. But I don't consider it an unalienable right, though, because one group can give and the other group can take it away. We may, on a broad scale, think that we are entitled to those things, that just by being a human and being born, we're entitled to those things. And yeah, that may be true on that scale. However, they can give and they can take away. They think only they themselves have such a right, along with the moral responsibility to make decisions for everyone else. Here's what they want to do. They want to replace that doctor who has spent 20 to 25 years studying a topic, who's in there actually doing the work. They want to replace that person with the person who showers before work or after work. They want to put it, that's what I meant to say. They want to replace that doctor who is experienced and knowledgeable in that field, understands it, with the person who showers after work. Yep, Uncle Joe Bob's third cousin down there, his aunt and uncle and aunt all want a job, and they want to take over the NIH, National Institute of Health, because, their woke ideology is just pervasive there, all that gender science that's going on. I can just see Uncle Bob's third cousin's fourth wife stepping in there. Okay. All right. Our movement has not been united in recent years. And the past decade, they're the breakdown of the family, the rise of China, the Great Awakening, big tech's abuses, and the erosion of constitutional accountability in Washington have rendered these divisions not just inconvenient, but politically suicidal. Every hour the left directs federal policy and elite institutions, our sovereignty, our Constitution, our families, and our freedom are a step closer to disappearing. Well, what do they think they're going to do here? I mean, if their family consists of Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, and Miss Smith, and that's the only reality that they will accept, and only the binary understanding of biological or genetic sex, as applying that even to anatomical sex and gender, I mean, what are you going to do with the rest of the country? Are we going to disappear? Oh, wait. Yeah, that's what they want us to do. Conservatives have just 2 years and one shot to get this right. Phew. Okay, and then down here, conservative promise represents the best effort of the conservative movement in 2023 and the next conservative president's last opportunity to save our republic. Okay. So anyway, that's what I spent some time right there talking about the four, because I think that's hugely important. People need to see that. And let's go over here to this chapter. This is the chapter on transportation. Now, there were not many references down here to any of those things that we just saw in the forward. So I'll just go down and find the one that I highlighted for this. The Biden administration has broadened the FHWA's scope to emphasize by emphasizing the priorities of progressive activists instead of pursuing practical goals. These policies include a focus on equity, a nebulous concept. It's only nebulous to you because you closed your eyes to it. Open your eyes. I do think that was probably it. I don't think there was another one in this chapter. Yeah. So let's go on over to the VA. The VA doesn't have too many of these things in it too, but there are some pointed things that do take place. This is by Brooks Tucker. This is the chapter 20, Department of Veterans Affairs, mission statement. Let me just go down through here and find a few things. Additionally, the current VA leadership is focusing very publicly on social equity and inclusion. Whoa. Within departmental policy discussions toward ends that will affect only a small minority of veterans who use the VA. Don't they matter? Aren't they important too? Apparently not with these people. They don't want any minority represented in there, studied or looked at or anything like that. Have conversations about them because, it's a small minority of veterans who use the VA. For the first time, the VA is allowing access to abortion services, a medical procedure unrelated to military service. There's a lot of services that are provided by VA that are not directly related to military service, like getting older and having heart attacks or stuff like that. That the VA lacks the legal authority and clinical proficiency to perform. They're not the ones doing it. In addition to continuing the grotesque culture of violence against the child in the womb, these socio-political initiatives and ideological indoctrinations distract from the department's core missions. They don't distract, they actually amplify it. But then again, this is just a small minority of veterans who don't matter, apparently, right? Go on down. Whoops, here's the next one. Needed reforms. This is in VHA. Rescind all departmental clinical policy directives that are contrary to principles of conservative governance, starting with abortion services and gender reassignment surgery. Neither aligns with the service-connected condition that would warrant VAs providing this type of clinical care, but childbirth isn't directly related to that either. Okay, well, and neither is, the purple pill. Both follow the less pernicious trend of abusing the role of government to further its own agenda. Like the conservative agenda, you mean? Okay. Let's scroll on down. Let's find another highlighted section. They're in here. There's not too terribly many, though, and that's the surprising part in the VA. I looked up words like woke and, gender, sex, diversity, LGBT, stuff like that. And you can just do the search up here yourself. You can go dig in through it and read it all if you'd like. And basically, that is it, folks. That is the end of the chapter on the VA. And as it pertains to us as veterans, and this is a veteran organization, yes, very much concerning to us, and also very concerning to us that promises have been made that have not yet been kept. And so we're going to have to start doing something about that too. And I do appreciate the fact that TAVA actually filed a lawsuit against the administration of the VA for failure to complete that promise and to fulfill that promise. We're going to have to do a little bit more, which may entail us standing out in front of the VA headquarters with signs that say, hey, the VA is not taking care of all veterans, as they promised and as we have earned. And then go stand in front of Heritage Foundation and just pound on, wrong choice of words. We're going to walk up and down the street out there and make sure that the media and everybody hears us and knows that Heritage and all those other organizations, the conservative think tanks out there, they are refusing to talk to veterans. We're that small minority so they can pretend to ignore us. But if we make a loud enough stink over it, maybe we'll get an audience with them and be heard. Maybe people will see that there's a narrative out there that is not including, people like me. And with that, let me go back over to the other page and let's just go check and see what's going on there, folks. All right, there's a couple of comments over here. I want to thank everybody for watching, but let's go ahead and check the comments out. How are you doing? Hi, Laura. Happy Friday to you too. Yay. But I do have to say that I'm not sure if I'll be able to do this evening's project or not, the show, because I've got to go to Kentucky. My sister is in pretty dire straits, my younger sister. So I'm not sure yet exactly when I'll be leaving. I may make it in for the show tonight. I know tonight's show, we do want to talk about our C3 side, our TDVA side, to talk about the Go Transport program, working in collaboration with Uber to make sure veterans get to and from their appointments with VA, their medical appointments or mental health appointments, and picking up prescriptions if we need, and all that thing is something we've developed with Uber, and we're getting ready. We're testing it. We're testing it now. It's in the final stages of that, and we're getting ready to roll that out. And I was going to have on this evening Stacy Lunsford from down in Utah, who is the program manager for that within the C3 side. So Stacy was coming on, and likely will stay here just to make sure that happens. But this weekend, though, I will be in Eastern Kentucky to visit with my family, and rough times right now. All right. Happy Friday, everyone. With that, let's close it out of here and go back to